All right, everybody. Thanks for joining today on Dirt Nap City. We have Alex, the co-host with the most, and then we also have a super fan who's joined us for a couple of episodes, Al from Austin. Al, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're enjoying a little bit of springtime in Texas, which, you know, it's going to go from, we had a little bit of cold and now I think it's 85 degrees, but you gotta take that while you can, because that's a whole lot better than it will be in June or July.
Yeah, and there's people that are in blizzard conditions right now, so we can't complain about weather in the 80s for sure.
You mean like some of our friends up in Canada
Or New York?
New York? Yeah, up that away. Well, I heard this statistic that like something like 90% of all Canadians live within 100 miles of the U.S.
I told you that, didn't I?
Yeah, I pay attention. That's all I was trying to say.
I thought it was 70% of all statistics were made up on the spot.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good one.
I learned that from you.
I feel seen.
Today I want to talk about a guy who was born in Montreal in 1938. Now, this is kind of an interesting fact about him. I really got wrapped around the axle about this.
I think I know who it is.
Okay, 1938.
I think I know who it is.
You want to say?
Oh, will you be mad if I get it?
I don't think you're going to get it.
Okay.
Go.
Marcel Marceau?
Yes!
No. Quite a different person. So this guy was born in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec. But here's the thing I got wrapped around the axle about in a good way. He was born on September 5th, and he also died on September 5th. And he was born in 1938. He died in 1983.
Oh. Are you a numerologist?
This is like that Lincoln Kennedy thing, right?
Yeah. Well, kind of. It turns out Marcel Marceau is French, not Canadian.
Well, they're Quebec, right? That's pretty French. He was actually born. His name was Kenneth Gordon Polschek, but he went by the name Ken Carter. Have you heard of Ken Carter?
No.
He was also known to many because of what he did for a living as the Mad Canadian. And by mad, they didn't mean angry. They meant like he did these crazy stunts. He was a stunt car driver. We've talked about Evel Knievel. One of the best episodes we've ever done was Evel Knievel. This was Canada's equivalent to Evel Knievel.
Oh, really?
Ken Carter. Yeah.
Okay.
So, AW, you told me about him. I think we were on a bike ride or something a few weeks ago, and you were telling me about this documentary that was called "The Devil at Your Heels" about this guy, which is a little slow. It's it was made by the Canadian government. It's not super well polished. It's all kind of shot in that old school look. But the most interesting thing, well, let me back up a minute. He was born in Montreal, lived in a kind of working class neighborhood, dropped out of school, and started traveling with a team of daredevils. Now, how cool would it be if somebody asked you what you do for a living and you said, I travel with a team of daredevils?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That is what I do. It's okay.
Well, that's true. It's true for you, but it's aspirational for us. He started jumping all over North America. So he would come over to the U.S. side. He would jump these cars over rows of buses. He would jump them over rows of trains, other cars, ponds, anything you could jump over. He would build a ramp. But where he really started to get a name was he pioneered the use of these rocket cars. So it's like he would take a stock car and put a rocket engine in it, start that thing up, hit speed very, very quickly, and jump a long, long way.
Was this like in the 50s and 60s then?
He was kind of getting into it in the 60s and into the 70s.
So you're saying he was contemporary of Evel Knievel's?
He was. He definitely, he wanted to be, I think he felt like Evel Knievel was respected, but he wanted to be that guy that did the big shows, right? Because what he mostly did was traveled around from city to city, these little racetracks, where people go to watch racing and watch automotive stuff. And he would do these shows at those places. And he had a team of people. He had a bus It had said something on it about like suicide or something. It was, he was pretty punk rock and nerdy at the same time. But the way he decided to get his game up to the status of Evel Knievel was he wanted to do a really big jump. Now, think about it. I know AW knows this, but Alex, the place that I go in the summer, you know what that river's called, right?
St. Lawrence.
The St. Lawrence. Yeah. So the St. Lawrence is a river that comes out of Lake Ontario and goes all the way from Lake Ontario to the Atlantic Ocean. It is in some places 3 or 4 miles wide. It's huge. I mean, it's basically draining the Great Lakes, so it's got to be big. AW's been up there. He's seen it. It's a pretty impressive river, huh?
Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Growing up in South Texas, I feel like, if I had a better arm, I could throw a rock across virtually any river down here. You can't even see the other side.
Yeah. And when you do look across, you're looking at another country. If you're in the U.S., you're looking at Canada. And if you're in Canada, you're looking at the U.S. Or you might be looking at an island in the middle that is one of those two. Well, his idea was to take one of these rocket cars and jump over the St. Lawrence River from Canada to the U.S. in 1976 to celebrate the bicentennial of the U.S. I don't think many Canadians would do that these days. They're not as friendly to us as they used to be.
And I can't imagine that Evel Knievel was cool with that. He must have been livid.
No. He actually so this all took place around 1976. They were planning this whole thing a couple of years in advance, but they raised money from ABC. You remember the Wide World of Sports?
Of course.
Remember the tagline for that?
The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Yes.
Ah.
And what happened with the agony of defeat? I can always picture this.
The
visual.
Yeah, was it ski?
The downhill skier. Yeah.
Ski jumper, I think.
Totally crashing, just like, skis and poles and everything flying everywhere. Well, Wide World of Sports sponsored this. They gave him $250,000 in the 70s. Now that was in like 2025, 2026, about $1.5 million today to make this happen. So he found a spot on the St. Lawrence River, and he found it was a spot that had a open field. It was kind of farmland. It was in Morrisburg, Ontario, 50 acres of farmland. And he built this giant ramp, and he wasn't going to jump all the way to the U.S. mainland. He was going to jump onto an island that was on the U.S. side. The kind of international line goes down the middle of the river in some places, and on some places it goes on one side of the islands or the other. But he was going to jump across the international line, not checking with customs or anything, just literally land on the U.S. side and parachute down. So he got this rocket car. What kind of car would you pick, Alex, if you were going to jump the St. Lawrence River, and you wanted to attach a rocket to your car?
Just a regular car, you mean?
Yeah, it was a production car that was modified.
These are just production cars, and then they would put a rocket on the back of it.
Correct, with jet fuel.
It was a major engineering modification, but it's kind of like saying the like stock car racing, technically that's a stock car, but it's yeah. So they really spent a lot of engineering into this.
I mean, if they're all the same, it'd be cool to get one that looks like a station wagon.
Would you do like a Kia or a Sorrento?
Like a station wagon with wood paneling would be the punk rock way to do it.
An old Buick station wagon would be your choice.
Sure. But a green Lamborghini also would be kind of cool, right?
Sure. Well, his choice was a Lincoln Continental.
I told you, like something like of course,
more in line with the station wagon. Very, very large, very boxy car. He had a crew of engineers. He had this $250,000 equivalent of 1.5. So he had people going in and pushing dirt to make a ramp. He had engineers that were building the rocket car. He had to put little wings on it so it didn't like lift off the ground. They were kind of these stupid little wings on the side. You can actually see the failed jump on YouTube if you just type in St. Lawrence jump Ken Carter,
or the whole movie,
or you can see the whole movie on YouTube.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there were delay after delay. So bad weather. Also, the engineers were having trouble with the fuel tank. It kept exploding. Like they would test it and it couldn't handle the pressure. And so the fuel tank would explode. That's not good. They had problems with, at one point, they had problems with the people that were helping them. Like the crew went on strike because they weren't getting paid. So all kinds of delays. Well, after like 4 years of these delays, first of all, ABC got cold feet and quit giving him money and said, we're not going to pay for this anymore. And then he had a few other backers that wanted to do this. He originally, like the first time he was going to do it, there was a huge crowd that showed up all along the side of the road. They're all parked there. They're all watching. And then something happened and he didn't do it.
Didn't they also like coordinate with the St. Lawrence waterway? They stopped traffic,
They
ship
stopped
traffic.
the freighters. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. So no freighters going by. They've got it all opened up. And he doesn't do it. I think the first time might have been weather. Like it was raining or something. And then 6 months later, because they have to reset everything. You can't just go the next day for some reason. It had to be a long wait. So the next time he was going to do it, right before he was about to take off, there was something that happened that spooked him and he aborted and he didn't do it. So third time, they've got like 6 people watching on the side. They've cut the film crew down significantly. They've got, all the things that were going to make the hype have kind of gone away. Instead of, I think for the first 2 times, they had big speedboats that were going to be the rescue boats if they needed them. This time they had one little dinghy. It was just one of those little, with the thing on the back, the tiller. I mean, it was kind of pathetic. And they decided that Ken Carter had lost his nerve. So, A-Dub, you tell the story of what happened next.
Oh, okay, sure. So there was a speculation that there was a problem. Okay, there was a problem with the jump and the backers, and they demanded that Ken Carter come to a finance meeting, like an hour away.
Yeah,
and they got him out of there. And what happened in that moment, they got a substitute driver to go, and I think that's where you want to pick up. But the speculation is that they were worried that he had lost his nerve, and he was always going to find a reason to delay, and so they got him away from there with this other person at the ready to do the jump.
So the other person, it's a name you've heard probably, Alex. He was actually a stunt driver that worked for Ken Carter. His name was Kenny Powers. That was actually his real name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, both these guys had kind of like these handlebar mustaches and kind of, afro kind of hair, like white guy afro kind of hair. And we're both,
good 70s
smokers. Yeah. Very 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. Classic macho 70 stuntmen.
Both of them had the look. Well, so they get Ken Carter off to Ottawa, and then they decide they're going to do this with Kenny Powers. So Kenny Powers gets in the car. He's never driven this car before. And by the way, driving a rocket car is not easy. Ken Carter had actually trained to drive a rocket car because it's hard to keep on the road. It's very hard to control. Sure. Kenny Powers had never actually driven a rocket car before.
The car was also, when we talk about being engineered, it was sized to Ken Carter's body and size, and Kenny Powers was like 8 inches shorter.
Oh,
yep.
And so could he even touch the pedals?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
They're stuffing him in there. So I have to say though, if you watch the documentary, you're very I'm very impressed by Kenny Powers because they're all trying to delay. They're like, oh, we need to do the safety check, and we're doing the countdown. He's like, no, we're going. Let's go now. And he like literally within they were going to count down from 5 minutes. He's like, no, you don't need to count down from 5 minutes. Count down from 5 seconds, and I'll go. And so he changed the countdown from 5 minutes to 5 seconds. He waved away all the safety people and all the checks and everything, and he pushed go. And what happened? Hey, Dub.
So he hit the end of the ramp and he launched.
He made it up the ramp.
He made it up the ramp, and he immediately fell to earth, and he fell to water. But I will say, he was so close to the shore that the boat didn't matter, that people walked from the shore to the car.
It was like 2 feet of water
to remove him from the car. And he was seriously injured.
Yeah. And vertebrae.
But they're just ripping him out of the car. And I'm thinking, ugh. But I don't remember the reason. But for some reason, air got underneath the car, and the car, instead of going straight, kind of went up. And
well, it was because the ramp had not been engineered properly and was bumpy. And so it caused the car, because it was going so fast, it caused the car to bounce, and it got air under it. And then the chute deployed prematurely, and which also happened on the Snake River Canyon, right? The chute deployed prematurely. But if you watch this thing, he just goes flying into the air. The chute's behind him. He has 2 chutes, and one of them is just spinning. It's not even open. And the other one sort of opens, falls into the water. They wait out to get him because all they have is this little dinghy for a rescue boat. And he's given the thumbs up and all this stuff. And then Ken Carter finds out that this all happened, and he's pissed because it was supposed to be his jump. He was mad because he thought Powers could have been killed since he hadn't done all the training that Ken Carter had done. But it turns out the two of them stayed friends for the rest of their lives, according to the movie.
Well, so there was like, why would they be friends? Well, this guy betrayed him, right? And so there was some question about that, and I don't want to steal if you're going this direction, but the thought was the getting Ken Carter out of there was actually orchestrated by Ken Carter. And Kenny Powers looked at him as a father figure and said, I got you. I will do this for you.
And we'll make it look like you wanted to do it.
Yes.
I didn't pick up on that. Was that in the movie? Was that in the documentary, or was that something you read separately, or was it in the podcast?
Can we cross-reference a podcast?
Absolutely.
So Heavyweight did this story, and they followed the Kenny Powers story pretty deep, and they spoke to his widow, and they were asking, why would they still be friends? And she's like, Kenny Powers loved Ken Carter and would have done anything for him, and he would have never done anything to hurt him. And that was then the speculation that, okay, maybe this was done to really save face for Ken Carter.
Wow. What a setup. What a shenanigan. Well, of course, Kenny Powers is injured, fished out of the shallow water. Ken Carter is playing angry, and there's some press conferences that are in this documentary with him where he does look pretty angry. I can't believe they did this to me, and if he's not really mad, he's acting pretty well.
Sure.
So he goes about his way of jumping, but he has this void in his life because remember we talked about how he wanted to be like Evel Knievel. He didn't really have that big stunt that would put him on the map. And so he had talked about, I think there were some other things he was talking about jumping, like, just in the planning phases, some kind of big jumps that he wanted to make, or go back and redo the St. Lawrence jump. That was something that he still thought he could do, but he had to make a living. So he would go around doing these little shows, kind of podunk towns like Peterborough, Ontario. And in Peterborough, he was jumping over a little lake. And the first time he tried it, he had the rocket car. That was his trademark. And it was kind of like a Supra maybe, or a Datsun. Maybe it was a little Datsun. And he couldn't control it. And he steered off the edge of the ramp and crashed into the water. They had given him oxygen and actually Frogmen went out and like dove down and pulled him up, but he had an oxygen tank that he had just in case he landed in the water, and it actually came in handy. He survives. He breaks his foot, and then he promises that he is going to come back like 6 weeks later and do it again. Like before, the organizers, the landowner, the people that own this track didn't even know, but he just throws it out there. I'll be back on Labor Day to do this again.
It's a good promoter. You got to put a deadline. That's how you make things happen. You create a deadline, things happen.
I don't care if your dog's at the vet. We're doing this. So he ends up going back the second time, and this time there's a race that happens ahead of it. It's a racetrack in Peterborough, Ontario. And the race runs long, so it gets dark. And so they paint his car bright yellow so that people can still see it. This is like at 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. He still wants to do the jump. The second time he's attempting to jump this thing. And apparently he was in good spirits. They did all the safety checks and everything. It's like 11:45. People are ready to leave. They've been watching racing all day. They've probably been, drinking Budweiser or Molson or whatever. And he tells them to put a little extra fuel in the car. Like, I think I need a little extra fuel. And the way these rocket motors work is they just basically burn out the fuel and then they stop. So it's like this really big hit of energy, and then it's gone. But it's enough to get him over. He's worried he's not. He landed in the water last time because he drove off the ramp. He's worried he's not going to make it, so he hasn't put a little extra. And then this time, he goes sailing into the air over the lake, the little pond, over the trees, and actually 100 feet past where he was supposed to be on the other ramp, and lands upside down in a parking lot.
Ooh.
And that was the end of Ken Carter.
Really?
Wow.
Massive injuries. Yeah.
Wait, did he die?
Yeah. He was pronounced dead on the way to the Peterborough Civic Hospital.
Wow.
That was that took a dark ending, man.
The car had a roll cage, but when you see the video of this, you actually see how high he was, and it wasn't expected, and it literally did a 180. Like the weight distribution on the car wasn't even, so it flipped over and just landed on the top and just crushed him down in there. They got him out. I think he actually survived, but died on the way to the hospital after that. But it was a pretty sad day for the people, fans of racing and fans of stunts.
I would guess that he, I don't want to make light of that, but he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, true.
That was his whole life. The beginning of that movie is one of my very favorite scenes or just events, and he's at one of those old stock car races, and he jumps like 8 cars, and he crashes at the end, and they have a camera inside, and this is 1970s technology.
Yeah. This wasn't a GoPro. This was some kind of film camera.
He hits he lands hard. I think he breaks his ankle. He's injured. They pull him out again. They just rip people out, and it's almost cliche how he behaved, and they've got him on a stretcher, and he's like, bring me the mic. And
you wanted to make an announcement to the audience.
Yeah, I'm going to be here tomorrow night. Don't go away. Be sure. It's like, it was so awesome. That was what he loved.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Oh, they do.
Well, I forgot to mention actually one thing about the St. Lawrence jump. ABC actually did hire Evel Knievel to be a special correspondent to that jump, the one that he didn't do over the St. Lawrence. And Evel Knievel came out and met with Ken Carter and actually reported, to the public on camera and also back to ABC Sports and said, "That ain't going to work. It's not going to happen."
Right.
Evel was very skeptical.
So I'm confused on why they would be friends. I would think, knowing what we know about Evel Knievel, it doesn't seem like he would like a Canadian kind of honing in on his territory.
Well, they weren't necessarily friends. This was ABC using him as a correspondent for this. So like bringing in a subject matter expert that knows these kind of jumps and saying, so the
they
only
must have not liked each other.
the clips you see, they're very civil to one another. And I think Ken Carter was a little starstruck, honestly, but Evil's kind of like shaking his head, and the whole in the clip where they were live on the news and Evel Knievel's interviewing Ken Carter, he's like, dude, this isn't going to work. He's very skeptical that this thing is planned out enough. And I think the budget he was trying to do it on wasn't enough. He was really fighting against weather. And you mentioned that the water was so shallow. The St. Lawrence is a variable level. It'll go up and down. And so at the end of the season, it was October when he did that jump and landed in that shallow water. The water is way, way lower. It's probably 10 feet lower than it was at the beginning of the season when he was supposed to jump.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's why he landed in this little muck, that was, I think it was 500 feet off the end of the ramp that he flew and landed in this muck. But yeah, it was interesting to see the dynamic between Evil and him. So I did read a couple of subreddits about this, and this was a few of my favorite quotes from the subreddit. This is it damn that's interesting was the subreddit. And Assaulted by Mods said, was there any math involved in this stunt? And Honey Bucket DJ said, jet car plus ramp equals F yeah. And then another character whose name I can't even say because it's so obscene said on Reddit, the math checks out. And then another guy says, it's math.
Yeah, there you go.
And then another guy says, more like Molson math.
There you go.
I thought that was pretty good. And there might have been some cocaine involved. This was the 70s and 80s.
He did ask for more fuel in the car.
He did,
yes. He asked more fuel. We assumed it was the car. Maybe it was more fuel elsewhere. So, one thing about that I heard on Heavyweight was they talked to Kenny Powers' widow and her son, and whether or not the character Kenny Powers was, completely based on
the character from Eastbound and Down.
Eastbound and Down, thank you.
Yeah.
Was based on Kenny Powers or not. They felt like it was, and they weren't looking for, anything other than just kind of closure of, because they would watch Eastbound and Down and they would laugh.
Because they would see things that Kenny Powers would have said.
They would hear, the kid would hear his dad, and the spouse was like, oh yeah. And they would just laugh knowingly, which is so awesome, to get that solace. I think it's cool.
Well, let me ask you this. We've talked about some daredevils on the show before. We've talked about Evel Knievel. We've talked about the Wallendas. Right?
Oh yeah.
To some extent, Harry Houdini, I think, was a bit of a daredevil, right?
Yeah. Fair.
Where do you think the Wright brothers fit in all this? I mean, they're not considered that at all, right? They're American heroes who started spaceflight, but was there a little daredevil in them too, or were they so precise and measuring twice and cutting once, and they were technicians and they weren't like these fools? Or do you think they kind of got lucky that it worked?
They were more like Neil Peart, the professor of drumming, versus the animal of drumming, the John Bonham, just crazy. Moon. Right. I had never thought of them as daredevils, but at the time, what they were doing was absolutely deadly, right? People were dying at this all the time, and they were breaking ground. But I also kind of see that they put the work into the science to make sure it would work. They were brilliant enough. I don't think Ken Carter put the right team together to actually make his stunt work.
But you mentioned that scene on the river with all these people. I think that's every time the Wright brothers flew, it was a similar scene.
Yeah.
And if television had been around back then, ABC probably would have televised all of their flights too. So I wonder how much daredevil those guys had in them.
Where does the engineering stop and the daredevil begin? There is a spectrum. That is a great.
I can tell you exactly where it stops and the other one begins is when they get in their own aircraft and fly it, right? If they had a test pilot that would do it for them, then they're just engineers. But as soon as they say, all right, Orville, I'm taking it up, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you've got Ken Carter over here and you got the Wright brothers over here, or Evel Knievel over here, where does that blend change?
Sure, and you got to throw Neil Armstrong into that mix too, probably.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I actually do. You segued this well. I do want to bring up a couple of other stuntmen. Of course, Evel Knievel. He wasn't. He was the most famous daredevil, at least American, of all time. He kind of made crashing part of the show, was his thing. But I found some others that I thought were kind of interesting that you might not think of as daredevils. There was a guy named Dar Robinson. Have you heard of Dar Robinson?
No.
He was actually a Hollywood stuntman who did his own stunts. And he was one of the first people during the 70s and 80s to start doing these free falls himself, doing this kind of stuff that you hear Tom Cruise doing these days. But he actually did all these stunts and was in films and credited in a lot of films, but nobody knew his name because he was a step in for somebody else. The other one is Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen like Rumble in the Bronx or those movies he's done with Chris Tucker, he is doing those stunts. He's climbing up those walls. He's jumping off of things. He's just an amazing stuntman. And what I think is really cool about Jackie Chan is he would show all the bloopers. Like that was one of the things at a Jackie Chan movie. At the end, you would see all the times he messed up. It's kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah, it is cool.
And then another one, Zoe Bell. So Zoe Bell was Uma Thurman's double in Kill Bill. She was in a movie called Death Proof, but she was probably considered the greatest female stunt performer, Hollywood stunt performer of all time. But that leads us into another whole realm, and we're almost done, but I want to go through this realm. Fictitious stunt performers. Anybody got any of those?
You mean like Super Dave Osborne?
Yes. So I ended up watching
the only one I can think of.
Well, I ended up watching a long time worth of Super Dave. It is so funny. It is the way he did that, and the way he was so deadpan and so confident. Yeah. It's going to work out. I think we're going to get this done. And then he ends up like biffing it every single time. If you haven't seen Super Dave Osborne, please, people, go watch that. Yeah. Then there were two others that came up in the fictitious category that I actually didn't know about, but I knew about, but I didn't know their names. You guys know who Colt Seavers is?
No.
That name does ring a bell.
That was the Fall Guy. That was the Fall Guy.
Oh, okay.
Colt Seavers was the Fall Guy. So, and then I've actually never seen this movie, but it came up several times. Was Hot Rod, the movie Hot Rod, Rod Kimball. So,
okay,
Rod Kimball was sort of the antithesis of Super Dave. He was. He didn't have a lot of backing. He was kind of bootstrapping everything, and he would also fail sometimes. But he did it. He did it with a lot less grace than Super Dave. Super Dave would always just walk away from it like, I'll do it. I'll get it next time. So.
Yeah. And then of course, there's Rick Dalton from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
the DiCaprio character who was Cliff Booth's stuntman.
Is that the one with
Brad Pitt?
Yeah, Brad Pitt. Okay.
He was Brad Pitt's stuntman.
Yeah. I thought Brad Pitt was really good as the stuntman in that. That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, Brad Pitt was the stuntman.
Brad Pitt was the stuntman.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it backward. He was Cliff Booth.
Well, if you like stunts and all that stuff, definitely check out our episode about Evel Knievel, and also to Alex's point, check out the one about the Wright brothers and maybe Neil Armstrong, because those guys. I mean, they had some big cojones. I'm just going to say that they got out there.
Well, don't sleep on the Melendez.
I was just going to say that is actually an amazing story and an amazing family.
True.
Tallulah Gorge, many years ago. Yeah. Saw that with Alex, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, the Flying Willendas, I have to say, of our episodes from I think last year or 2 years ago, whenever we did that one, that's actually a pretty popular episode. A lot of people really responded to that. The title, "Families That Fly Together Sometimes Die Together." Dun, dun, dun.
You're proud of that, aren't you?
All right, everybody. This is Dirtnap City. If you love stories about interesting dead people, please feel free to subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Up in the cold where the north wind bites, under a steel gray sky, there was a man with a match in his hand and a fire in his eye. He'd seen the posters, red, white, blue, the jumps and the leather and fame. He said, if evil's the king of the highways, I'm gonna burn my name. He didn't want no second billing, didn't want no hand-me-down crown. Said if you're gonna ride with thunder, you don't ever back it down. He was a mad Canadian, strapped to a rocket flame, pointed at the St. Lawrence River and betting it all on his name. From the North Shore to the island with the border in the dark, evil rode the highways, kindling up the spark. Mad Canadian, never rode this far. Mad Canadian, riding that rocket car. Canada behind him, stars and stripes ahead. Just a slice of rock and dirt, and 1,000 things unsaid. The river rolled like a warning, cold and deep and wide. But he said, I ain't here for safety, I'm here for the ride. Fuel and fury in the summer air, crowd holding every breath. Some men run from the edge of glory, some men dance with death. He was the mad Canadian, chrome and gasoline, built his dream in a backyard shed like a rebel machine. From the North Shore to the island, through smoke and through scars, if evil chased the spotlight, Ken would chase the stars. Mad Canadian, riding that rocket car. Jealousy's a loaded gun, fame's a restless sound. You can hear it in the distance when the engines start to pound. He said, I won't be forgotten, I won't fade away. Hit the switch, lit the sky, turn night into He was a mad Canadian, blazing through the sky. Crossed that river like a lightning bolt, no fear, no alibi. From the North Shore to the island, he flew too fast, too far. If evil on the legend, Ken became the sky. Mad Canadian, born to ride that rocket car. Yeah. Mad Canadian, still riding that rocket car.